WarsawJS.
Hello. Once again, I'm Krzysztof Wojnarowski. Thank you for having me here. Today, I work at Box as an engineering manager like for over 2 years. Great place. About like today's presentation, it's like I heard it all before. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the things that like seem to be new or like are hyping. So everybody talks about them. People are using them. Both are actually some kind of like old concepts, and like were here long before us, like long before me, and yeah. So I'm gonna start with like a brief history of like how this all started, like with the internet, and then like go through some patterns and things that are like hyping. Yeah. So yeah, how everything started. So everything started with HTML. So it was developed for like better accessing like academical papers, and its main feature was the link. The link. It allowed people to access remote content without having to move. It was like a game changer at that time. So then like some browsers like started appearing, and people got bored with their websites. So this guy came, Brendan Eich. You probably know him. He wrote the first version of JavaScript, and the purpose that he had was to make those like websites a little bit more interactive. So you can add an alert window, like a pop-up, or you can add like a falling snow effect on the website. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, so starting like 1995, we were able to add falling snow effect on the website and displaying pop-ups. Cool thing. Then like document object model was introduced in 2000. And like, why was that like a good thing? Because until that time, people like different vendors like approached HTML in different ways, and that let's say API unified and standardized like the way of approaching like and handling the document. Anybody remembers Internet Explorer 6? Yeah, okay, so for that adoption of the standard wasn't like going in a like having a standard is one thing, adopting it is another thing. Then this guy came in 2006. He decided, okay, no longer like long selectors. We'll just use a $sign and like give the like element that we want to select. He invented and did like created jQuery, which was like another like game changer. And it had like a part of like quick selectors. It had like a good support for the things that you were using your JavaScript for. So it was animations and sending AJAX requests. And AJAX requests are based on like this XHTTP request object, which was like introduced in 2000 by Microsoft and then adopted by Mozilla in 2006. And it was a game changer. It allowed us to get content from the server without having to reload the whole page. First, it was done like you could send text only, so people were sending like text or XML or HTML, and it was like a beginning of the world as we know it. And then like we're gonna speed up a little bit. It was like 2008. HTML5 came in, and it basically killed something which was called like a Flash media player, Flash player. Anybody like maybe remember that? So this was like a different language plugin that you have to embed in your browser in order to have like a video, audio, or other multimedia, and HTML5 like came with that. And this is the year that like this guy, Michał Szaniewski, came to my house. He handed back my Turbo Pascal books and said, Krzysztof, stop writing into Turbo Pascal, start learning HTML, start learning JS. And actually he like, this man made me, make me like stand here and follow that path. Then in 2008, 2009, we had like in ES5, which was like the 5th version of JavaScript, there was like introduced this map function. And map function is something that like whenever you go to internet, ask about like function programming, lot of examples pop up with the map function. So don't iterate, use map function. So even that is like in 2009, quite old. And a part of that, like Node.js was released on that year, and that meant that we no longer have to learn different languages. We can do everything in JavaScript. So it's like 2009. Going forward, 2013, React is getting open source. So React like initially was for like Facebook was based on React. It was like closed sourced. And actually after releasing React and like getting open source, the hype for like declarative programming and like patterns and functional programming actually started because React was, let's say, promoting these approaches. 2015, more sugarcoating. We got like let and const. We could get rid of our global state management by using var keyword. We had like modules, promises, arrow functions, classes. So like, yeah, the real objective programming in JS, 2015. And yeah, why was that history? Just to like highlight, and we will gonna get refer to that like a little bit later. So why I heard it all before? Because let's say we have this like imperative paradigm. Imperative paradigm is something that we used as we were like working with jQuery. So we like the way you program imperatively is like you want to have a cake. So you are providing like a recipe, like get eggs, put them into the bowl, then add flour, then add, I don't know, milk, whatever, then mix it. And this is how it works. Like it's easy to understand. Is it right? Is it read? You don't care about the side effects, and sometimes even those side effects like are beneficial, and you intentionally do those side effects. So you are using that, and actually a lot of code still exists like written in this way. You can wrap it and like create the functions around that, where you can see that you have like still this kind of issues that if you add cat to allow or like anybody else, then invoke those functions. Yeah, you will get the outcome, but your initial array will add cat to everybody. So like we have the side effect of like affecting and changing the state, so the external variable. Then like we have this another approach which is like supported by React and like many other things, very hyping, very cool, trendy thingy. And it's like a declarative paradigm, and like part of that is like a functional paradigm. So what does it mean? Instead of saying how to make a cake, you say how do you want your cake to taste. So I want a cherry cake, and you don't care. I want a cherry cake with a cherry on top and some cream. In order to get there, you use something which is called like pure functions, and this is like, it sounds scary or like wise, but it's nothing more than like changing the way of thinking that I'm writing everything inside the function. My function has to do only one single thing. It cannot rely on the state, so it can get the data and output something, and nothing else. Don't alter the data that I'm getting. Don't do anything about them. Just get something inside and throw something outside. And that provides like with the same result whenever you run it on the same set of data, doesn't variate on the internal and external variables, and is idempotent, which means whenever you run it with the same arguments, it will like return exactly the same. Yeah, so remember that RI map? It turns out that, yeah, it was, I don't remember, like 2006, something like that, when it was introduced. It turns out that you could do it on your own before that, like even in the oldest version of JavaScript. It's just a way of approaching the code. So, for example, okay, I'm gonna go here and like point that. We start with function with cat. So we want that our element has a cat. So we get an element, don't modify it, we just return element and add it has a cat. Then I didn't have like a better idea for naming, maybe log cat, but do the same, but I want that cat to be logged like in console. So once again, I don't change anything. I just get an argument, then provide like another function on that, and print the element down. Then I want to have like this, like cast to undefined. This is something that I'm ashamed of, but I realized afterwards. So it casts undefined to some sort of element, and it's not like a, don't look at that. Let's go. Let's go to the for each for each loop. So RI has these fancy functions like map and for each, and like whenever you look at the internet, there's like, oh, don't use for each, like use map, use RI map, blah blah blah, and it turns out that you could do it even a long time ago, and it's like recursion is like something that people were doing like very long time ago. So actually this map function was just adding a should recounting of something that existed. So if you want to have like a pure function for each, then it looks more or less like this, that we have a function, we have like the array, we have a callback function and index to iterate over. And whenever if the index is lower than the length of an array, then just call the callback function and invoke the for each function once again with increment of an index +1. And basically you have the for each function done in like a functional way. For RI, you can do more or less like for RI map, you do the same. The only difference is that you output your data in the array, and if you were like, if you want travel time back to like a 1995, you could have this, you could program like in a functional way and like using this function paradigm, and you could like have this like for each and have a la Makota, and you could like map your array and have a la Makota in nice clean way. A little bit longer, but nice. And yeah, so what is that about? That not everything can be done with like features. It's not that language has some like cool stuff around it and now we should like program in a different way, but it's all about like approaching the thing you do and like using the proper tool. So not everything can be done with sugarcoating. You can still like use RI map and have side effects. No worries, still can be done. Recursion is your friend. So basically it's a way to do, it's a way that you can like solve a lot of problems with like iterating over stuff just by invoking the proper functions. And yeah, design patterns are like, okay, design patterns is like something different, but if you shift the way of thinking and like start going with the like, let's say, proper approach, design patterns and good practices are enforced by the way of thinking. You don't have to even think about it. And I not mean that, okay, now everybody has to like function program, like, wow, it's cool, let's hype for it. No, it was there for a very, very long time. I just want to say that it didn't show up yesterday. And for how long was it there? It was like since 1930s, previous century. Lambda calculus, which is like fundamentals of the functional programming, was invented in 1930s. Then first language that supported it was invented in 1960. It was Lisp. So it's even older than JavaScript and the web itself. I don't know, like SQL, which is like implementing the declarative paradigm as well. It is like something like 1970s, and Haskell, another like language that's like hyping, is for like from 90s, and React was 2013. So quite a old concept, but like getting back with the glory, etc. And yeah, so it was like kind of long talk about not object-oriented programming. But do you think that's like, if somebody thinks that object-oriented programming is already dead, then no, because in the newest specification of ECMAScript, so JavaScript for 2022, we have static properties, private properties, and more of object-oriented programming sugar. So it's just a tooling. The fact that language has some, let's say, sugar content doesn't mean we have to use it. And like doing all that stuff without the sugar coating was possible even long time ago. So yeah. Another thing, now it's like time for the server-side rendering. So how do we create? So it's concepts of server-side rendering. We have browser that sends a request to our server. Server does something, then we have like this view layer. View layer takes data, takes some template, does some magic, and sends HTML to the browser. Do you know any framework which does that? Okay. Yeah, we have Next.js, Next.js, Angular Universal, and these are the things like for 2016 or like 2015. But the whole concept was there in like starting in early 2000s, and actually those new things are utilizing those new things utilize those old concepts. Yeah, sugar coating of language. Yeah, like decorators is another thing. Yeah, we like. I was very glad that wow, I can have this add sign and you can use a decorator. I don't. It's cool thing, but then I realized, okay, I can write it on my own. I don't need an add sign. And all the others. So conclusions. Actually, it's worth learning like more of computer science than frameworks. First thing. Second thing, like, why is that happening? JavaScript and TypeScript, like environment, community, like everything about them grows very rapidly, very fast, and applications are becoming like more and more complex. So the patterns that we didn't need back in the like jQuery days, we start to need them once again, and we are adopting the things from the backend. So learning backend stuff is like pays off. Right now, we might like come up with a framework that's not there yet for a frontend, but it's like already on the backend side. Another thing which I emphasize like every time, those things are only tools. There is no silver bullet that will solve everything. So whenever you hear a hype word or like you want to introduce a new library into your code base, think twice. Is it really needed? Is it something that you really want to do? Will that solve the problem? Because at the end of the day, it boils down to the customer satisfaction, not to the fanciness of the technical solution. So remember about two rules. First is like, you ain't gonna need it, so don't overthink and keep the things simple. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions?
Okay,
Even before, there we go.
Did I bore you to death?
a question. So, okay. So usually we have MVC on server, MVC back on the front end, right? And like, so people like, okay, so what do you think about using backend languages into the React components?
Once again, what do I think about putting backend rendered?
Backend languages into the React server-side components. The idea was that with server-side rendering, one can put code that will be executed on the server. And
I love it. I know what you mean. Using SQL in React, man.
Exactly, and I've seen.
But actually, whenever it does the job.
Yeah. Okay.
Good answer. Whatever floats your boat.